So we create all these environments and all these situations, divorces and marriages and bankruptcies and losing people and all of those things, right? To get ourselves to this soul assignment. Because we have a purpose. Each one of us is here for a reason, and your soul knows that reason. And it's gonna constantly nag at you until you listen.
Welcome to another edition of City on a Hill. I'm Whitney Mendoza, your host, and today I'm joined by Stacey Weiss, and she is with Keller Williams, Jamison and Company team. Stacey, thanks for joining me.
Sure, no problem. Thanks for having me.
I was just thinking as I was introducing, you actually do get a trick question. I tell all my guests no trick questions, but I forgot to tee you up for my last question that I ask every guest. So, but I think you can. I feel like you're going to be able to.
I'll be all
handle
right.
it. You'll be fine. We were talking about everything else.
Yeah, no worries. I'm an open book.
Yeah. So just give our listeners a little bit of background on what you do, and I'd love to hear why real estate for Stacey.
Okay, great. So this is kind of my, I call it 6.0 life because I've moved through so many things in my life, but this is my second half of my life. So I was with my ex-husband for 20 years and we had two businesses together. He had a morning radio show and we had a charity, and I ran both of those as the business operator. And when we divorced, those both had his name in them. So it was time for me to move and do something on my own. So when I went through that, I decided real estate was the direction I wanted to go. So I looked around at some things and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And then I just had a lot of friends like, hey, you'd be a great realtor, Stace. You love homes. You're such a great decorator. Decorating's just a natural thing for me.
Nice.
So I love decorating.
Explained your great style too, by the way.
Thank you.
All decorators, I'm like,
thanks. I appreciate that. So I love decorating. I love homes. And I've always been in sales for years. I was in sales. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to look into this real estate thing. And as I did, I got more and more excited. So I love doing it because it's such a huge purchase. It's the biggest purchase that a person makes in their life, right? And so I love being the person that gets to help you do that and find your home. And the biggest thing that I'm always looking for is if I'm going to find a home for you, we're going to find a home where your home, what's inside you, feels at home. So that connection to me is really important. So your home, your internal home, your heart should line up with where you're going to step into every day at the end of the day, where you're going to lay your head down. That's a big deal to me. And so that's where I come from in it, is that you're asking me for a huge thing to help you with. This is the place that it's your refuge. It's your safe place. It's the place you come at the end of the day. Yeah. Right? Where you can shut the door and the world is out there and you're in here and you can just be you. That should line up with what your heart says.
I love that.
And that's how I approach my clients. So I do a lot of the buyer side. So I do a lot of finding homes for people. And then my team, one of my teammates does a lot of the listings. So I'm out there in the field a lot. And that's my goal when I'm with one of my clients. So I saw that I could connect how I feel about what it's like to be in your home and how important that is with helping others. So that's what made me really love real estate and why I continue to do it.
Yeah. I love that because there's so much that goes into buying a home too. I mean, I'm even thinking about, especially since we're in Atlanta, the drive it takes,
the commute
right?
is huge. Yes.
Because you kind of, when we bought our first home, I remember I'm like, an hour drive, that's not too bad. We can probably make it. And like if we really time it right and we, are a little foot heavy on the pedal, we could probably make it in 45, which is not bad for Atlanta. You get tired of that so quickly.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
so quickly.
I am constantly with my clients like, listen, I'm telling you, at the end of the day, it is better to sacrifice here than that time you're going to be in that car.
Yep.
I mean, let's get you something that's closer to work. You'll be okay. And I just try to guide them that way too. And it's so emotional when you're buying a home. Right. It's very emotional. A lot of people get very emotional about it. And it's such a huge purchase. So there's a massive amount of money around it too, right? So you have both things going on.
Yep.
And those are going to pull at you, right? They're just going to pull at you. So I like to be kind of that. I can be non-attached because I'm not going to live there. I'm not attached to any of that. It's not my money that's purchasing it, right?
Yeah.
So I stay back here and think about the things they're not thinking about. So I'll be like, so are you sure by Thursday you're going to be glad that you don't have a space to sit outside after 4 days of work and you can't go sit on your back porch? You're going to want a back porch because I know you're a porch person because you've told me that. Right. So I'm always letting them know. Or I was with my client the other day and I was like, now, are you sure you're going to be okay that this door goes this way because you don't like this? Because they're not thinking about that.
Of course.
They're just like, oh, this is pretty. I like it. I'm excited. This feels good. Yay. And long term,
right,
my goal is that you're with me forever. So when you're ready in 3 to 5 years to sell the one I just sold you, we're going to list that one and we're going to buy you another one. Like, I'm here for the long haul with you. I'm here for your kids to buy their houses. Like, I'm here long term. So I'm not going to let you get in something and then you get in there and you're like, why didn't my realtor say that? Or why didn't she, you know what I mean? So that's kind of another angle that I'm always using is I'm always just trying to think for them from a non-attached space.
Yeah. Well, your passion around this is so evident, and I kind of teased on my Instagram prior to our conversation that I know that you know your stuff because I've seen you sell to a werewolf. And so I was like, so if you want to hear that story, listen in. But I was so honored to be invited. You had a client event that you did, and it was at Roll Call at Ponce City, which was fantastic. My jaws were literally hurting.
So Roll Call is this new improv location at Ponce City, downtown Atlanta.
And so you were voluntold to come up on stage.
Yes.
And
voluntold.
You were.
That's great.
I wish I remembered the gentleman's name, but because what was funny is he had like a beard, so he almost looked like a werewolf. And that was the role play was that because I think it was around Halloween, and he was like awesome. So he was a werewolf, and he was explaining all the different like I think he had a meat room.
Well, no, I was showing him homes. He was a werewolf.
Did you make up all the rooms?
I made up the rooms.
Holy smokes! I forgot that. Okay, so it was a meat room. Something about hair because werewolves have a lot of hair, and it was like brushing
like his
hair.
grooming area, right? And then a place where he ate, and then I think there was like a den for him to sleep or something.
But so it was like the werewolf's house, but then the way you were selling it, you were like, well, this could be like a meat room for a chef lover and like maybe someone else with voluptuous grooming personality could use this room. But like the way you were describing it, I was like, if I was a werewolf, I'd buy this house. So
thank you.
Walk us through how you do this differently, because you did what was so great about that is it was improv, but I knew that you were a star at this because it came so naturally to you.
Great.
Like you were actually able to make it through. I was laughing because I was like, this is funny, werewolf buying a house. But you were so confident in your ability to sell this crazy house and walk through each room. I was like, that's fantastic. I would buy it.
I think it's, I think you can apply it to any job. I don't think it necessarily means real estate. I think it's just a way of being. And that's what I try to explain to people. And I say my team is myself and Nancy and Bill Jamison. So they're a husband and wife team. And
the whole team is
phenomenal.
Wonderful people, yes.
So they've been doing it over 20 years in Atlanta. So when I got the opportunity to be a part of their team, that was huge for me to just... Now I've got some solidity here and I've got some people that can really like help me move the needle. And that's been the case. But we all come from a space of beingness where it's not about how much is the commission on this one, or is it even worth me doing because I'm not going to make much, or those kind of questions, they just don't exist for us. It's not about how far can we make this? Let's get them in this house so we can get this done and get this closed so we get that number in by this month. Like, we just don't do business that way. And I've never done business that way in any category. But this in particular, because it's such a heart space that you're coming from anyway, it's always from contribution for us. For example, I got introduced to this couple and they were having some trouble because they were having some trouble with their landlord. So they're renting, right? And this friend's like, I wish my real estate friend was here. And I happened to walk in and she's like, oh my gosh. So I said, oh, send me your lease. I'll take a look and I'll try to give you some advice about how to respond and see if you can get this thing fixed.
Yeah.
And so no problem. Like I'm not even showing them anything. They're renting, right? We're not even in a place but I know that the possibility's there, but it didn't matter to me. Like, it was about helping them. And then whatever came of that. So it's the way you're coming with the energy of it and who you're being. So if you get away from it being about money and it's all about service, then you're in a whole different space around it. Your brain's going to come from a different place. Who you're being is going to come from a different place. So it really, for me, is long-term relationship. It's full connection, because I truly believe we're here to connect. I mean, absolutely. I believe that's why we have come to choose a physical experience as a human, right? Because we could stay in heaven if we want, but we choose to come and have these physical experiences. And if we're going to do that, it's all about connecting.
Yeah.
Why else would you be here?
Well, and that further pushes you towards your goal of being essentially that family's lifelong realtor, right? Because you did right by 1, 2, and 3. The history of that just continues on.
Right.
Where, versus if it's just a deal, it's just, a
Correct.
one-off, then that's how your client's going to view that.
Right. And there's also this space around it too. Like, I'm going to be truthful with you. So if I'm concerned that even though you're going to make your own choices and you're going to buy the house you want, I'm never going to tell you what to do. But at the same time, I'm also going to always be there, like, making sure that you're thinking about all of what you need to think about and that you're covering all your bases so that you're going to be satisfied in your situation. Because that's my job. My job isn't my commission check. My job isn't to make sure I get another set of keys turned over. My job is that you find a home where your home is happy.
Yeah. Well, so for me, that leads into this transformation piece that I definitely wanted to dive in, because I think you exude confidence. And you're probably thinking, well, that's because of this work that I've done on self.
No, I appreciate it, because there's lots of times I don't feel that at times.
Well, I feel like you exude that, though, and to me, that's one of the most attractive things about someone.
Thank you.
And that's in anything, right? That could be who I want to do business with, who I want to do life with, like the fact that you're confident, and there is a fine line between confidence and arrogance, right? Like,
yes,
you can walk in a room and you're sure of what you do, knowing the fact that someone may ask a question that you don't know the answer about. But the difference between the two is a confident person can say, I don't know the answer, but I'm sure going to find it for you.
Right.
And so, again, just seeing you interact and the moments that I've shared with you, that's how I feel. And so I'd love for you just to kind of dive into that transformational piece and finding who Stacey is, and then how you feel that has kind of shown itself in your business.
Sure. Well, this is my favorite stuff to talk about. Good. For sure. Not that I don't love real estate, but I feel like your root, your core of where you come from just produces everything else that you do. So that's really your essence, right? And so I lived a life for a long time a certain way. And most of it I felt I think I was in survival mode. And I was performing and being who I was supposed to be for everyone else. So it was all external. So I showed up how I thought I was supposed to show up, and never how I thought who I was. So I did show up as me, but it was so much more about what everyone else was expecting and what everyone else's expectations were on me, that I lived in that space, right? So when I divorced, and then after that, there was some additional things that we went through that I keep very high level, because I live in such a different space around what that was and where I was.
Sure.
So we went through some really difficult times, my ex and I, in some difficult situations. And so by the end of around fall of 2019, I had pretty much lost everything. And I had to start over. And
Wow.
I got to a place where I just got on my knees and I said to God, or whatever your higher power is, so no judgment there either. I just call mine God. And I said, I'm the common denominator here. It's time to take a look at me. Like, what's going on here? What's going on here? And so I got deep and I got a coach and I got into a community of transformation. And I think the biggest lesson in all of that, too, I want to note is community, because we all think that we can do this by ourselves and we can't. And I promise you, I'm a pretty freaking strong woman. And I realized that I had to have others around, that there was no way I could sustain what I was going to try to be without community. So I get into this space and I start realizing all these things about myself and all of these ways that you could think differently and be differently in your life. Like, wait, I'm allowed to love myself. I'm allowed to put me first. Wait, hold on a second. Even more than that, choosing me first actually makes it better for everyone else. Whoa. Like, that took me a minute.
Because we don't think like that.
Nope. And it's just, we've been told so many lies about who we are, and we truly are. We already have it all within ourselves. So that's what I've learned in this transformation, is getting away from the external, because if you are dependent on everything external, then you're affected by all of that. So I was spouse-centered when I was married. So everything was about him and his career and what he was doing, right? And that's how I focused. And I thought that's what I was supposed to be and do as a good wife. And those were the things I was supposed to do. And what I realized was such a detriment to him, to me, to our marriage, to all of it. Because I wasn't being the full expression of me. And without the full expression of me, no one can be the full expression of themselves.
Yeah.
So, and I get a little emotional sometimes too, because some of it is so big and it's so beautiful to have been able to start to understand these things and now be able to share them with other people.
Absolutely.
So as I've moved through this work, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing this courageous, confident person because I've stepped into it and I've got my hands dirty and down deep and ugly and wow, what were the choices I made?
Yeah.
With no judgment. Because everything I chose and everything I did to get me right here sitting with you had to happen. I had to choose those things because I couldn't be this. So I no longer live in any victim. I no longer blame my ex-husband for anything. We created all of it together. I created all of those things to happen in order for me to be able to be here so that I can be the realtor I'm being. I'm being the realtor I'm being because I don't live in survival mode, because I'm not worried about what everybody else thinks. I'm solidly being me and standing for them. I'm taking a stand for my client to say, when I'm able to bump up against them and say, you might not want this commute. I know you think this house is amazing, but that takes courage. A lot of agents would just sell it to them. Yeah. Just sell it to them, and then a year later, they're miserable.
Well, and then if you're never home because you're on the road all the time, you don't even get to enjoy it.
Right.
And again,
why are you making a mortgage payment?
Yeah. To your point, you get so involved in the house itself that those are the things we aren't thinking about.
Right.
Why do you think we're, as humans, because there's two kind of commonalities that I've noticed. One, we're scared to look at ourselves. And it might be two separate questions, so if you want to answer them separately, but I also feel there tends to be something that sparks the inward look. And I'm curious as to why you think that happens, right? Like when something in our lives changes, and then we go, okay, now I need to take a look. And almost if you stop and think about it, it can be the opposite, right? But it's almost like, well, when, to your point, if everything's been taken and you're kind of stripped down to nothing anyway, we're like, okay, well, what's it going to hurt if I go a little bit deeper and see all the ugly so that I can dig it up and try to fix it?
So I think what's interesting is a lot of times people step into transformation or shift who they're being or how they're thinking because of a rock bottom situation. Yeah. And I think we create the rock bottom situation to be able to look at ourselves. So ultimately, call it whatever you want. Okay, you can call it spirit, soul, whatever it is. Our internal, what internally drives us, right?
Yeah.
We are clear. That's what makes us humans. That's why we're here. You know, and I'm sure there's people who believe that there isn't anything, but ultimately I think we all believe that there's something deeper within all of ourselves, right? That's what drives us. That's and I call it soul. For me, it's soul. And that soul that's where the agreement comes from. So you're making that soul agreement, right? When you come to be in this human experience. So as you come into that, your soul's, it's clear what the agreement is. Now, your ego is not necessarily clear. And your ego doesn't always want to be there with you on that. So we create all these environments and all these situations, divorces and marriages and bankruptcies and losing people and all of those things, right? To get ourselves to this soul assignment. Because we have a purpose. Each one of us is here for a reason. And your soul knows that reason. And it's going to constantly nag at you until you listen. And if you don't, it's going to take your ass out because it's all connected. So where do you think cancer comes from? All the diseases, all the health issues. Yes, there are factors that are genetic. Yes, there is biological things out there. There's stuff in environment, sure. But it's all connected. And ultimately, if you're fighting against who you truly are and you continue to do that, you will live in dis-ease.
Yeah.
And you will end up with disease. You're going to kill yourself by not listening to who you are.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, I think that that's how we get to the digging deep, is our soul finally says, okay, here's the deal. Either you go dig deep and you get where we're aligned and we're doing why you're supposed to really be here, not this bullshit that you're doing over here, like this stuff that doesn't mean anything, or this stuff that doesn't serve you, which then can't serve anyone. Right? You keep doing that, I'm going to go. Soul's going to leave. I'm going to give you cancer. I'm going to give you whatever. You're out. You're done. It's not going to, you're going to be an alcoholic, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to live a miserable life because you're not in alignment with who your true being is.
Yeah.
But when you get lined up, that's when you want it. You want to do the work. And I also think some of it not looking at ourselves is because it's hard. Dude, absolutely. I'm telling you, this has been the hardest 3 years of my life. The stuff that I've looked at and how deep I have gone, the pain that I've sat in, the transitioning, it's hard, but I wouldn't change it for the world. Where I'm going and what I'm playing for now and how big it is, all of this has to happen.
Yeah. Our common friend, Chris and Andre, we use the word, I stole it from her, but woo-woo.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you're just listening to it on the surface, it sounds woo-woo.
Right.
But kind of like we were talking about before the show, I just listened to this podcast on the lack of stomach acid, folks. Don't ask. It was a health podcast. But it was basically saying lack of stomach acid prevents your body from being able to break down what you eat, which then means that stuff comes out in other ways. So like your skin or headaches or anything like that. Well, one of the causes of a lack of stomach acid in your stomach is consistent stress.
Right.
Then if you're feeling all oogly googly because you don't have enough stomach acid or fill in the blank, that's when it does impact your job. Like every single piece of it goes together. And to you, it's like being your best self allows you to be your best for your clients too. So even though you don't think of it that way, if you really start to kind of break it down, it's like, actually, no, it's all interconnected.
Totally. And the thing that really, I thought it was all about serving everyone else. So that's who I was. Like everybody else came first. Everyone else's needs came first.
Yeah.
And I thought that was how you were supposed to be good, like a good person.
Yeah.
Right? I don't believe in good and bad anymore. I believe you're either effective or ineffective. It's healthy or unhealthy. There's no judgment in those words. And your choices can be that. So I might have made a choice over here.
Insightful way to look at it.
Right? Because as soon as you take the judgment away, you stop beating yourself up. And when you stop beating yourself up, you start loving yourself. And until you love yourself, I don't care how cliche it sounds, you can't love anyone. You can't fully love anyone in the presence of what we mean love is.
Yeah.
Right? And so every time that I love myself, I see my boys grow. I see them change. I see my ex-husband change. When I love him now. I literally hold a space of love for him. There was a time when I could not say those words.
Yeah.
And I love him, and I'm seeing his life change. I'm seeing my boys move in different directions and choose differently because I'm loving me, and I'm knowing that because I am, and I'm being confident, I'm standing in that. Mm-hmm. I'm standing for you. I'm standing for my boys. I'm standing for every person when I stand within myself. And if we all did that, could you imagine what this world would be? I mean, I'm telling you, because I'm in a community that's what we do. I mean, this is hardcore transformation in this community, right? And everyone's at this level. And I'm watching how that energy as a collective can move the world. It's mind-blowing. And I do believe it's coming. Like, I do believe that this is the way that we're going to have to move, or this world is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, if we look around right now,
Yep.
I've never seen it worse in my 52 years.
Yep.
Never.
Yep.
Never.
100%.
And I know, and that's some of the reason, too, that I do this, is because I want to be that light. I want people to see that. Yep. And know you can, too. Like, it's all about standing in it so that others know they can do it. Because everyone's going to have to eventually. The world will go away if we don't. It can't make it. That's the way we're moving right now. It can't. We have to shift something.
That reminds me of a quote by Mike Tyson that I've quoted before, and I know it doesn't sound like it come from Mike Tyson, but it did. But I watched this interview with him, and what you were saying about, no good or bad, just healthy or unhealthy, effective, ineffective. Because, Mike Tyson's known for like beating people up. But he said that he used to get so easily offended. And then at some point he got in his life to he remembered he was a nobody. And now he doesn't get offended.
Right.
And I'm like, that's kind of, what that is in a sense is like, I want to be effective for someone.
Right.
But if you offend me, then
it shuts everything down.
Yes.
Right?
And if I view it like that,
right,
I'm already at a loss.
That's right. Because that's the question. When something bumps up against you and you get irritated or you get fired up or that bothers you, that's what you look at.
Yep.
Because right away, if you're having resistance, that means there's something within yourself that you are judging that.
Yeah.
And if you're judging that, then there's a reason that you can't connect to it. So when something rubs you, that's the key. So I said to him, if it's rubbing you, 1, then why? And I said, 2, understand that you couldn't believe what you believe if they didn't believe opposite of you. Because without contrast, you can't know anything. You can't know hot if you don't know cold, right? Yep. So he can't know what he believes if there aren't other people believing other things. So why isn't it okay if we just all believe what we believe? Like, there's no judgment. Yeah. Like, if you're Jewish versus Christian, it doesn't matter. If that moves you and that gets you to a higher power, I just said, aren't you just happy they have a higher power? That they believe in something bigger than themselves? Because God help us if you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's real. Yep. There's proof in science there's higher power.
Right.
Now we've proved it in science. I mean, just watch Joe Dispenza. You can find it all out. Check him out. He's amazing. And I think that if we can sit in that space where it's effective or ineffective, like I'm not choosing to believe that because that's not effective for me.
Yeah.
But I don't have to judge them. Let them just be what they are. I think that's the space we've got to get to where there's because then we stop judging ourselves too.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We were sent here as loving beings. That's all we're supposed to do is love. Period. It's the only word. I don't care which book you look at. The Torah, the Bible, it doesn't matter. Science, all of it. It's all about love at the end of the day. And I know it sounds woo, but I'm telling you, my life is completely different. My kids are making choices at such a level that I never thought I would experience. They're already moving into this kind of space where, can you imagine the impact they're going to have on the world?
So I have 2 more questions for you. And one, I don't want you to give all your secrets away because I know you do this work for others. So I definitely want to at the end, make sure we get your information out there so
Sure.
people can connect.
Yep.
Going through this, I was kind of thinking of, is it Runaway Bride with Julia Roberts? I know she leaves every time she gets to the altar, but doesn't she do this segment in that movie? It's been a little while, where she basically makes herself eggs every way there is to make eggs because she didn't know the way she liked her eggs, because she always ate her eggs.
Yes.
However, she cooked them for whoever she was with. Mm-hmm. And then, you kind of get into the movie and you're like, I'm going to have them scrambled over easy. I'm going to make an omelet. I'm going to have eggs every way so I can find out the way I like to eat eggs.
Right.
What is maybe like the first step or the first 2 steps that you took to kickstart this for yourself?
A coach.
Okay.
And there's a lot of people saying, oh, there's all these life coaches now, and there's so many life coaches, right? I'm telling you, listen, I did talk therapy for years. I believe in talk therapy. And there's a point where you stop talking and you start taking some action, right? So I do believe you've got to talk some stuff out. One-on-one with somebody, just talk. But your therapist isn't going to get you into action because that's not what they do. That's not how that works. A coach is going to get you into action. And it's
that's an interesting.
Yes, it's because that's a therapist.
Yeah.
That's not how they operate. That's just not how they operate. That's not how therapy works. It's a talking situation. They can suggest, right, or they can, but ultimately, talk therapy is about you trying to get to the answer, right? So yes, you've got to get to those answers. I hear that, and a coach will help you get to answers too. It's when you've got the answers or you're starting to understand yourself, then you got to take some action. And the action comes in the form of being able to address the whole being, right? So what I've come to understand now is you can't just go for the talking part of it. There's the physical, there's your lifestyle, and then there's your consciousness. So in my community in particular, we look at the being as a 3-dimensional being. That your health and fitness, your lifestyle is everything you put in, on, and around your body. So what are you watching? What are you listening to? Who are you talking to? Who are you hanging out with? What are you eating? What are you ingesting? What are you wearing? Where do you live? What's your apartment look like? What's your place look like? Like what is, do you have a big house, small? Like all of those things. Every environment that you're in that's touching you affects you. Your words, the types of words you use, the way that you speak, the things that you say. So like good and bad versus effective and ineffective. Just how those words feel can change you, right? So for me, it was getting a coach.
Okay.
And then in particular, getting into this program has really helped me. There are lots of great programs out there. But this particular situation addresses the whole being, which I think makes the biggest difference because then all of it is working on the same cylinder, like everything's working for you, which is what the universe is doing anyway, right? God's already doing that. Like if you're putting it out there, you're going to get that back.
Yeah.
You just tell them what you want.
Right.
So let's start putting it out in a way that's effective, that you're getting back what you really want. Not what, let's not be saying these things that we don't mean, right? And it takes time. But I do believe a coach is key. Okay. And I think that coach needs to be addressing your entire life. So it's all the wheels: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, sexual, all of them. You got to address all of them because all of it makes us up. And you're going to take whatever you're doing into all those spaces anyway. So let's take it as one whole being.
Right. Yeah.
And I know that's high level and sounds big and everything, but I would say the first step is get yourself a coach and get yourself physically moving. Like walking, whatever you need to do from a fitness standpoint. Start to pay attention what you're putting around your body, your lifestyle, who you're with, and get yourself a coach.
I love that.
And that's the key.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, we got this download the other day when I was working with one of my coaches. A champion is made up of someone who's courageous, consistent, and confident. And these are all the things that we talked about today. You said my confidence.
Yep.
Courage is how you step into it, and consistency is the key. You got to keep showing up Because I promise you, when you get on the other side, the way you can feel about yourself, the way you impact the world, you wouldn't want to live any other way.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to this and rewrite that down. The 3 C's.
The 3 C's.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Courage,
love that.
consistency, and confidence.
So I think you're going to like my last question. That
Okay,
I
great.
Even though I didn't prep.
Okay, I'm ready.
So Fifth City, I think we've talked about before that the name comes, Atlanta's the 5th capital
Right.
of Georgia. So from that, and it is for me a biblical reference, but I love this concept of being a city on a hill, that you can't hide that light, right? Like the example I love using is if you've never been to Georgia, if you started at the north and you keep driving south, you're going to know when you hit Atlanta if every sign on the road was removed. Like you know that is Atlanta, and you can see it way far off.
Right.
So the question that I always ask is,
Okay.
what does it mean to you to be a city on a hill?
As a person or
As a person.
as a person? Wow. Oh, I just got chills all over.
I'm glad I didn't prep you. See, I knew
So I'm
this
very
was gonna
clear
be
with
good.
that. Wow.
Okay.
Oh, God, it's just shooting down my back right now. Woo. I'm very clear about what that looks like for
Okay.
me. So
Perfect.
I believe that God definitely helped me recognize my assignment in 2016. I realized what it was. And I knew it was going to be to use my voice to help other people heal. But I wasn't sure what that looked like.
Yeah, okay.
Right? And so now I'm clear that I see myself somewhere in the next few years standing on the stage in Mercedes-Benz Stadium with 40,000 women looking at me, and I am the city on the hill. And I can stand in that space in my confidence and my courage and say
Well, now I have chills, so.
that you
Oh
can
my
heal
gosh.
too. And it's already within you that I'm not special. You have it too. Just by who I'm being and being in that light,
Yeah.
that they know they can too. Because I know where I was and I know where I am now. And I don't want anyone to have to live there anymore. Like, I want people to be here and be in their love and their light. And so that's me as a city on a hill, is standing on that stage and telling others that they can do it too.
Where do I buy tickets?
Soon.
Okay, good. Because I will be
Soon.
there. I will be
Soon.
there.
Thank you.
Front row, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
That's beautiful. So good.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for having me. This
No,
was,
of course.
Whew.
I'm so glad you came on. I definitely want to give you the opportunity for people to connect with you.
Oh, yes, please.
In both realms, where do they find you?
I think the easiest place to connect with me right now is Instagram. Because
Okay.
I don't do a business page. It's just me and all of who I am. So my real estate's on there, my family's on there, my transformation's on there. So I think if you just DM me on Instagram, that's the best place. And then we can take it offline from there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's at Stacey Weiss?
Stacey
Is-
S. Weiss.
Stacey S. Weiss.
Yes.
And Weiss is Weiss.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yes,
Perfect.
Stacey S. Weiss.
Thank you so much.
You're
for coming
welcome.
on.
Yeah.
I appreciate this.
Yes, it was great. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all for listening. If that doesn't make you want to come back and hear more episodes, I don't know what will. So we'll see you next time.